Hello. Hi. Welcome to Talkin Story with Maitreya and Komplete. We're hoping that you're well. We welcome you into this space. Just waiting for Maitreya to get in on the studio. So, how is everybody feeling? I hope that you're all centered, ready to go, and we're going to have a beautiful conversation. So I'm just holding space right now while we're waiting for Maitreya to come in. I'm going to ask you just to take a lovely deep breath in. Let's center ourselves. In our big, beautiful hearts. Remember, we're just going to sigh and release with a smile. Just take this moment just to set your intentions for this evening. Actually, I should say good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. So I'm in the UK, and it's 9 p.m. here, and I know that it's about 6 a.m. in where Phil is, and yeah, I'm just welcoming you to the space. So again, let's center ourselves. Big beautiful breath. And release with a smile. I'm going to play which one is it? The solar plexus bowl, the one that represents determination and will. So if you just breathe and hum into yourself, just focus and connect. I've got you. As we center ourselves with the intention of connecting, going deep and exploring. And as we welcome Maitreya to the space, here and now, I turn it over to you, my soul brother.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Yes? Awesome. Thank you, Komplete. And welcome to Talkin Story, where we talk about basically everything and whatever comes up in the space. Before I get started, I'm just getting an echo. So that's anyway, I'm just going to take my headphones off and just talk. So I thought I would bring up a topic today. The alchemist is the one who transforms their pain into wisdom. And I think that's a really powerful statement. That's something that I consciously pay attention to in my life, is how I can actually transform pain to to give me energy, or to empower me. Um, and one of the ways that I do that is firstly being self-aware, being aware of what I'm experiencing in my thoughts and in my heart, in my body. And the first thing that thoughts and emotions tend to do with us is um, it almost wants to call you into invite you into its world. Um, and we have two choices. Um, we either accept the invitation of these thoughts, or um, we we just hold space for that thought. And it's it's a skill, and it's something that can be developed through training the mind, training the brain to, and that's where practices like meditation comes in, or the practice of self-awareness, where you're observing everything that's coming up and uh, not getting caught up in the stories that formulate from that. And then the reason why those things come up is because, for some reason, the charge of a thought, the emotional charge of a thought, has an attraction to it that we just can't help ourselves. Like an addiction, we need to know more about what that thought is, or what that emotion is. And for some reason in this world, a lot of those emotions and thoughts are negatively charged. Um, Things like resentment, or judgment, um, or anger, or sadness, or whatever it may be. Um, it's just things that are playing out throughout the planet. Um, and I guess that's what we're here to do, is to recognize that those things exist, and to connect to our infinite spirit, which doesn't get drawn into the stories. It more or less allows itself to experience those things and have the resilience to absorb it, and to then emanate a sense of love, peace, or its infiniteness within that. So, this is something that I've been working through my whole life, and from time to time, these waves come in, and you just got to learn how to manage it, how to develop the strength to withstand the storm. So yeah, I thought I would introduce that topic into the space. Um, Complete. What are your reflections, thoughts on that?
It's funny you should say the Alchemist. So I use a pack of balance
Manage
cards.
it, how to develop the strength to withstand.
Okay, but I'm getting feedback from you. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm getting feedback too.
Okay. So what I was saying is that it's funny you should introduce this. So this I use a set of balance cards every day, and this is the card that was picked today.
Oh wow! No
There you go.
way.
Yes, 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 yes. And as you said, we become wealthy and generous when we know who we are, when we're feeding into our emotions. And what I was thinking about when you were speaking is like the skills that we use in order to not judge ourselves, or the values that we use is compassion, showing compassion for ourselves with whatever's coming up. So whether we're feeling that anger, resentment, jealousy, unworthiness, we can look directly at what's going on for us, but with compassion, and then we can face it and delve deep into it, and, as you say, expand our awareness. So, what do you think about the compassion element?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive into that. So, what is compassion? So, compassion, element of compassion for me is um, understanding. Um, yeah, and again, like it's a quality of an emotion that is positively charged. It's expansive. It is the universe.
Mm.
Um,
I was,
and
yeah.
it's yeah, it's one of those things where you need to well, I find that I need to break down my mind and everything that is rigid or that holds on to um, a sense that it knows everything. Uh, is to forego your own. I mean that's what understanding is
Mm.
to be present for another, to um, to be present with another,
Mm.
uh, to truly listen,
Mm. Oh,
um, and
yeah.
compassion. Hmm,
my
yeah.
my my take on that is, so when you say to be truly present, it's like being really truly present with self. So the words that come to mind for me when I feel into the compassion is acceptance, allowing, and appreciation for who we are, where we are at the time, and acknowledging the feelings and the emotions again, without judgment. um, and if there is that kind of, like, what I'd say, negative feelings around it, is really exploring what that's about. And again, that's going back to maybe what our self-limiting beliefs are what's happened to us in the past, or even maybe what's happening to us in this present moment with individuals, relationships that we have. So it's really identifying, um, yeah, what that's about. So that's my way of doing it. Really digging deep and self inquiry. Yeah, a lot of self
Mm,
inquiry.
yeah, that's brilliant. Um, yeah, so what comes up for me is, yeah, definitely acknowledging what is present, what you're feeling um, in your body. Um, and there's something that gets released in a sense when you're able to shed light on something that is unseen. And again, for some reason, there are emotions within each of us um, has this wanting to be suppressed or is just innately suppressed. Perhaps it's coming from uh, childhood or programming through family, ancestrally, generationally, um, all of these things, and throughout the years, it just lays dormant inside the subconscious, perhaps, and unless it's actually unearthed and seen, um, sort of like the analogy that comes to my mind is when you light a torch into an area of darkness, and then once you see it, you're not afraid of it anymore. But it's always that the fear of the unknown, that I don't know what this is. I don't know, you know, whatever it might be really overwhelming or traumatic. The experience that for some people they can't even remember where it actually came from. It might have been something that happened when a child was 2 years old, or even in the womb. And it's there. These things are real. So um, so yeah, what I find is that when you have mirrors that show an aspect of yourself, or mirror back that aspect of yourself, you're then able to see another aspect within oneself, to then come to an inner realization that, oh, there is this part of me that I have not seen, that I had been suppressing. And once that's allowed to be seen, I suppose this is where understanding, compassion, love, um, all of these things, it has this it has this power uh, to hold that suppressed emotion or suppressed memory, and it releases it out of your mind, out of your body, and then you expand. Um, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. I know that one about fear and actually um, blocking the memories. And it's not until someone kind of reminds you of something, and you don't realize that you've also blocked out the good memories with the bad memories of that time. So you have a
Hmm.
total blank in that moment, or that in that timeline. And I feel that's so unfortunate. And you said something about, being able to face the fear, and it's the fear of the unknown. So what comes to me, what I do now is I feel the fear and face it anyway, because you don't know what's on the other side until you experience it. And it's like going to that space with faith, knowing that you are powerful, because maybe the work you've done on yourself, or the work that you're actually doing. It's setting the intentions, like I was speaking about in the meditation at the beginning, setting the intention of learning and expanding, walking through that fire, as you kind of purifying yourself, not literally, by the way, but yeah, walking through that fire, and realizing that it'll be well on the other side, because you've set the intention of healing, or seeing, as you say, like lighting that torch, seeing it, facing it
Hmm.
head on. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also find that these things. There's a quote by Carl Jung. Let's see if I can remember that quote. It is goes something like this: if you don't face your inner emotions or inner contradictions, it basically plays out as fate in your life.
Mm,
Um, and I think that's so true. Like, more or less, if you don't deal with what's going on inside you, then um, you'll be faced with circumstances in your life that will then teach you how to let go and do that work to go within again. So really, either way, you're going to learn. Uh, um, and yeah, I guess life is the greatest teacher there. I
it,
personally have faced that many times. Is like, um, yeah, you just you just find that life will either, many times in my life, even with my family, uh, life will bring you to your knees, and you really have, well, in my mind, you have no choice, or the only way is to embrace it in order to allow it to do its thing, um, and then be free from whatever uh, pain or suffering it's causing.
mm.
Yeah.
So you say you've been through it many times now, and we know what that many times represents, doesn't it? In a sense that
Mhm.
we haven't learnt the lesson the first time, so it's presented in another way, and then when you really kind of unpack it, you think, this feels familiar, this pain feels familiar. Why am I back here? Why me? Quite often people say, why me? But it's because we're not tapping into what's actually happening. We're not connecting. to the life lesson that's what the universe and is being presenting to us. And that's what I've realized um, quite recently with a very personal relationship. Um, and I realized that I wasn't recognizing that someone has a gift, but they don't recognize it. So they're an empath, but they don't understand the feeling. And so they will then turn that feeling into it's all about me. And when I recognized that, and I thought, wow, they're an empath. I won't use the other word that came up, with regards to making it all about themselves. But when I could accept the situation then, and that was a life lesson for me, because for all of my life, I saw that person as not being compassionate, not knowing what they're, how they may hurt someone in how they say something, but they don't know how they're actually um, responding to maybe a feeling they're picking up about someone or connecting with them. They don't know how to articulate it. So that's the next step is for me to show her um, that she is really feeling into people's emotions, and not to see it as a negative thing or to respond negatively. It's about understanding. Yeah. So life
Yeah, yeah.
lessons. And when we realize, it's like it's another thing that's lifted, another it's just like another breath of fresh air.
So, yeah. Thank you for that. And uh, so I actually feel like sharing something, another spiritual idea I want to throw into the space here, and that's karma,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is it's um, it's learning how to deal with present life circumstances where one is challenged with how to navigate a relationship or whatever life circumstances is. Um, this has been, I think this is actually my profound teaching. This is what, because often it's whatever, I'm finding that whatever a person's life journey is the teaching that they get to offer to the world. And so for me, it's like, what is this? Why am I experiencing this? What is and it's always for me, it's always like with family, it's relationships with family members, and it's like, why do I have these people in my life? Why are they doing these things? And like I've how do I mean, the best way is to understand what all of this is, because the truth is fundamentally is that we created it all. On at the highest level, we created everything. For me to be in this experience is because my higher self has called it in. Um, Otherwise, we wouldn't cross paths with the people that we have. So, or we wouldn't be born into circumstances of it, or whatever it may be. And what I find is actually those circumstances, they arise um, because of other experiences that had been um, let's say let's say in without going into another idea, which is reincarnation, but like in a life, in one present lifetime, say a few years ago, if something is not resolved or if something's not seen, um, it will that circumstance or that internal conflict will play itself out again. It will reoccur until you acknowledge it and you face it, and you learn how to deal with it in the best way. And the best way is actually through the heart, through connection with divine, and that comes back to understanding and compassion. And and so what actually happens, I'm just go straight to it, is is we have all of these lifetimes that and there could be hundreds to 1,000, right, that we've experienced on earth. You know, we get born into a human body, we have all of these experiences, and that it doesn't end there. We leave the body, but then we have a choice once we leave it whether we want to come and play again and go through this arduous task of having to go through these tumultuous experiences and amazing experiences as a human being. And so, in what I experience with my life, and one of the biggest teachers is how do I deal with relationships? How do I navigate boundaries with them, and how do I honor my own sovereignty and love myself? And it's a very it's a tricky thing. Most of my life, I would spend people pleasing, making people to feel loved more so than myself. I also have family that are super sacrificial and religious, you know,
Mm.
and that's like known as martyrdom too. So there are all of these things playing out, and it's like, well, am I playing out martyrdom by, you know, wanting to help another person and put myself out there, and then unconsciously or inside I'm saying, you know, I'm sacrificial, I'm doing it um, out of love, but actually it's from another sense of ego or another layer of ego, that I'm doing it for my own unworthiness of wanting to feel self-worth by performing the act of being sacrificial. uh, so this is like there's so many facets to how to navigate circumstances in life, and there's no right or wrong way. It's dependent on the individual and their life journey, because we carry forth these lessons from other lifetimes that perhaps in another lifetime was not dealt with. I think in another lifetime I might have actually um, walked out on my family. I get a feeling or a sense that I
Yeah.
may have done that. And
Yeah.
so this lifetime I feel like I need to be there for my family. You know,
Mm.
it's strange. It's like I don't, you know, it's like I want to honor my own freedom and to go and do whatever I want to do, but then there's a sense of responsibility that no, actually, you know, maybe I want to change things up and be there for them and see what happens that way. So yeah, what are your thoughts, Complete?
Um, I was when you talked about karma, I was thinking anybody who's watching from on a kind of like a low, when I say lower level, like um away from the spiritual level, so the earthly plane.
Yes.
So karma is like do what you want done onto you. So if you do bad, bad's gonna come to you, or good and everything else, but like that. So um but with regards to how my life is, I've done a few past life regressions, or someone's done them with me. And what I found was I'm a passionate person. Yeah, I always want to be um, giving out love, or showing my passion, or inviting people into that passion. Yeah, that vision. And what I discovered in the past life regression is that down my father's side, that the women were not allowed to show their passion. They weren't allowed to be free. Um, but my great grandmother, I think that she broke the mold in showing, going for who she loved. She wasn't restrained, and that she was seen as um, not a conformist. She was wild and free. And I could see that in myself, in like that passion, want to express it. And then in some circumstances, I've been held tight, like, no, you can't say that, or you can't do that. You know, I believe all is possible once you connect with that passion and you express it in the right way without hurting anyone. So that's what I discovered going back in the past life. So it was very interesting.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and that's there are all of these different templates that perhaps we're called as a soul to heal. So you mentioned your mum breaking the mold of being suppressed as a woman.
Yeah.
Um,
My great grandmother. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
My great grandmother. So if it just so the picture was, so I closed my eyes because I can see it. So the picture was her mother wasn't allowed to marry who she wanted to marry. Yeah. And so she was like very upset with like seeing her daughter breaking the mold, going for who she wanted to love. And so there was this kind of friction between them. And so the mother was angry. So her mother was like, well, I couldn't do it, you can't, you know. But the daughter's like left the fold and did what she wanted to do and lived the life she wanted to live. And so I believe that the passion that I feel is, and why I'm here to help people to tap into their passion, is so that you have that freedom, so that you can be who you are, you know, the authenticity, without restriction, without the conditionings of the world. And I
Mm,
suppose I respond in a way that when I see people who are restricted, my heart kind of really hurts. And so I wanted to know, where did that come from? And it is about everybody being able to be free to express and love who they want to love.
yeah. What do you what would you say is the this might be a big question, but what would you say is the biggest challenge that humanity faces um, in terms of what needs to be seen, healed, loved, understood?
You know, the words that I use, allowing and acceptance, yeah, and showing compassion to yourself. And when you can do all of that, then there's no kind of restrictions, that you can just be free. Once you recognize that we're all on the same level, so to speak, spiritually, you know, um, I believe that's when the healing will come to pass, when we can accept who we are, not
Mm,
try to be not try to be right or bigger or better or um yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's I would say it's yeah dropping in. It's like it's there's a knowing truth that
Mm.
you're speaking into, um, which which is experienced by all, and that uh,
We love you
I love
too,
you too,
Steve.
Steve. Yeah. Uh, aloha, guys. Um, yeah. It's dropping into that that truth. It's like if each of us actually came back to ourselves, then we would also understand each other because all of us are the same.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I always say to people that we have more in common than we have different. Yeah. We've experienced all the things we talked about. We've experienced pain through either being angry at something, could be something small, it could be something big. We've experienced maybe jealousy, wanting something that we haven't got. So you might have a bit of resentment. um, we experience those in different guises. And so it's when we establish that we all have those feelings and we're all the same, that's when we have the inroads to acceptance and allowing and compassion and, you know, opening up and expanded awareness. You know, my hashtag is love unity consciousness. It's like accepting us for who we are, you know,
Mm.
warts and all, as people say.
Yes, yeah. Um, yeah. 100%. I'm with you there. Um, the question that arises for me is this is what I experience, is that not everyone um, is attuned the way that what in terms of what you're speaking into, right? And when you encounter a situation or a person that is not speaking in tune with, let's say, it's this inner knowing of truth, or it's the divine frequency. In one way to describe that, because you can't really describe it. It's just a really good feeling. Let's say that. Um, and yeah, this is where the test comes. It's like, how can I be understanding, be compassionate to someone who's being a right asshole to me? That's the that's the crux of it. It's like, how do you, yeah. And I think it takes a very strong level of resilience, strength internally to channel your mind to hold whatever emotion, whatever behavior is arising in that space. And it's that reminder that it's not actually a true reflection of that person.
Mm,
Because my mind, the human can, it's a condition.
mm,
It's like we're put into this pot to work it out. And it's not easy.
hmm.
Uh, yeah.
What I'm gonna say is, I've been in this situation quite recently, and where I was kind of showing compassion and understanding and making suggestions. The person was very, what would I say, in their funk of their childhood and what was going on for them, and they were talking about being in a narcissistic relationship, like family orientated, not partner, not a love interest or anything. And what I realized is, when we try not to be a certain way, right? Our focus, where our focus is, where the energy goes. Their actions were being actually quite narcissistic, and I recognized it, and I thought, oh, but I recognized it because I've experienced it in the past. So what I did is just receive them with love. What we in the Bible they call pour hot coals, pour lots of love on them, and then hopefully they would see I was holding the mirror up to them. Yeah, so I'm reflecting how they want to be received, but not what they were actually giving out. And in the end, when they, I think they realized and they messaged me afterwards, they said, "This is all good. This is great. This is, thank you for understanding." And I realized certain things. I won't go into details, but they did realize that they were actually projecting what they didn't want to be because that's all they were focusing on. Does that make sense?
Um, yes, it does actually. Yeah. Um, and yeah. I think you just nailed that. I just noticed there's some comments here. Um, Camille says that's a definite question, but we always have to treat people with kindness. Yes. And Ricky Lee says the human condition. So, yeah, the human condition is actually the monkey mind. It's
Mhm.
the Oh, that's the way that I define it. It's that chatter that wants to grab your attention and wants you to take away your presence, take away. Yeah, that's basically it. It's a very sapping energy. It's there, and um, it's yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's like we can actually use it as a tool.
Mm.
But often, I think this is just the way that we've been wired for whatever reason on the planet.
Yeah.
It's actually we've been wired to give our power away to the monkey mind,
Mm.
and it's a challenge because the truth is right. In my experience, the truth is that whatever the circumstances or conversations that take place in one's life, there's like, especially as an empath, there's an um, unseen wave or a flow of energy in the
Mm.
space, and
Mm.
that can be that can be amazing energy. Like it makes you feel nourished and fulfilled and happy and joyful. And then you also have other energies in the space that also can have the opposite effect too. Um, and what happens is, this is really fascinating actually, right? Because what happens is that if you're not aware of these energies that are floating in the space, um, you might find oneself might find themselves playing out, being the reflector of that energy in the space.
Mm.
And you might actually be that energy,
Mm.
right? And because if a person is giving their power away to the monkey mind, um that's what happens. And most people, I find, are not aware of this,
Mm.
and this is why it plays out and people start fighting amongst each other. But it's not actually them, it's the energy in the space that's unseen that is actually causing people to react to these emotions, because that is a real thing as well. We also communicate with each other through other means, not just through the way that we speak with each other, but it's also what is felt from within and what we collectively feel together.
Mm. I what I do, so just anybody who's watching wants to know what to do when you feel that you're picking up someone else's energy, or it's about trying to recognize what's going on for you. What I do is I take that moment. I talked about self-inquiry, but I take that moment to kind of balance myself. So it's like I'm balancing maybe my chakras, my energy points, what's going on for me. I take that moment to be still, to breathe into myself, and that's still, because when in the stillness we see what is supposed to be seen. Yeah, in that stillness we connect. We just You get that, as I think we talked about it last week, when we get that little voice that comes in, or that vision, or that picture, or that feeling, and you think, that's what it is. But it's also, again, how do we protect ourselves from the energy that's not ours? So it's about, taking that breath, and maybe what I do is I imagine that blue light, so the blue and gold light around me, or I would zip up my energy field, um, to protect myself from that, to be able to make the decision from a place of peace, of centeredness, um, in the response to, as you say, if someone's been an asshole, you step back, and just, okay, and then you can say to them, what's going on for you? How can I help you? How can I help you work through that? And you kind of disarm that person in a way, but with love and with care, because you then taken care of yourself first.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. um yeah, that what you're Everything that you're saying is just total mastery level in my view. Amazing. Um, yeah, we've been on for about 45 minutes, and it's been an amazing conversation. If anyone has any questions or any comments, just shoot away. Did you have any final thoughts that you would like to share? Complete? Is there anything that perhaps you think we should touch on?
I what the word compassion. The word compassion towards self is so important, and defining what compassion means to you. So how we kind of unpacked it, what it meant for you, what it meant for me. Others will have their own meaning about compassion, and I think that's what's important, really, to show yourself that love, show yourself that acceptance, and allow time. But you know what? If you say to me, I thank you. I take the compliment of mastery, but mastery can be painful as well, and it can take a long time. But yet, it can happen in an instance when you allow. When I chose, or I made that decision to allow myself, yeah, that's when everything comes flooding in. That's when all the lessons unpack, and you learn them quicker. And it's, remember I said about bounce back ability. In That's what's important. Allowing yourself, making that decision to connect with the inner self, the God, the infinite source within you, that unconditional breath of love and life I talk about all the time. So that is it. Just it's a choice. It's a choice. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Uh, Thank you, Complete and Maitreya, for the sharing your hearts and personal mastery. Yeah, brilliant. Um, I think you summed it up, Complete, and yeah, I would second that. Like cultivating the inner connection, and speaking for myself, it is not life is not easy. And also it's incumbent on us to take responsibility for our own behaviors and reactions, um, and ultimately the decision is up to us to how we choose to navigate it, because it all comes back to us. Nature of
Yeah.
karma goes around,
Yeah.
comes around, so there's no escaping this world.
You know, you know what I say? I don't know if I said it before. I always say that I want to learn all the lessons so I could be a spirit guide instead of being here in a human form. I want to be the
Yeah.
one that's like whisper in your ear. It's
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Complete.
okay. Love
uh,
you.
Love you too. And love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. And again, if you have any questions, if there's any way that we can serve you guys, pop in a comment and we'll get to those comments, questions as soon as possible. Love to you all.
Namaste. Mwah.